Hi everybody, it's Kathy here, and today we're playing along with madaboutminipads. That's right, we're using up those little pads that we've all got in our stashes, and we're creating layouts using those. So it is a little bit longer, this one today, and I hope you stick it through. This, I'm using, as you saw there, those two Halloween-y type layouts, and that's because of my photos. Now there'll be lots of explanation about the photos throughout, and if you're not interested in the story, then you can always fast forward or turn it off and mute it. But you really need to understand the story behind the photos and why I've chosen what I've chosen. But first of all, what I'm doing is I'm marking off where I want my design to go. And I'm doing like a maze pattern on my layout, which you will see come together with the small pieces cut from those mini pad papers. Now, as I said, I've chosen a Halloween theme, and the reason being, not because my photos are Halloween, but because recently my daughters and I went to the Manly quarantine station, and it is world famous for its ghost adventures. Ghost Hunters International and a few other people have been to the quarantine station and captured things, and we had a very, very active night the night we went. I'm prefacing this, my daughters and I are open to the paranormal experience, so therefore we actually got quite a lot out of it. There were a lot of skeptics on our tour. There were a lot that didn't want to know about it, but were certainly convinced by the end. I'm cutting out 1 inch by 1 inch strips here, and they're going to form the basis for my maze pattern, which you'll see me build throughout. And I have chosen all the little patterns with little ghosts on it. That's relevant to my story. It is a bit of a story, and there were many who were very much skeptical when it first happened, but as the night progressed, they very much opened up to it, especially as it got very active as we moved along. So I'm just going to cut these into triangles, and I will go off screen because you don't need to see me doing that with all of the squares, and you've got the main idea. So what I've done on my maze pattern here, I have laid down my tape already into the rails that you can see there, so that I can just go along and place my triangles. So all I'm doing is mixing matching the patterns all the way around, and I'm going to follow that all the way through the maze, so you can watch as I'm doing that. Now, this page I've called "Do You See What I See?" and not what I see, what I saw, because you'll see in the photos what I saw on the night. Now, we went into the quarantine station, and there was about a group of 20 of us. My daughter, my two daughters, myself, and my son-in-law were part of that group. Now, we went into the very first room, and they were telling us about the guide and what we would encounter and so forth throughout the night. And there were people there that were a bit skeptical, and you could tell. So I kept pretty quiet, even though immediately I was having an experience. There was this man with his wife who picked up one of the lanterns, because our guide said, Chris said, if you want to, you can pick up a lantern and take a lantern with you. So they did. They picked up the lantern, and they were standing over to my right, and I was leaning against the washer tub, and I was looking in their direction because, you know, I'm really into it, and I'm really wanting an experience. And Chris is saying, the more open you are, the more likely this is going to happen. So you can see here in the pattern, I'm going to cut in and out with my story. So you can see here in my pattern where I'm lining it up and edging it up, and now I'm moving around to the other part of the maze. And you can see how these triangles are coming together to create like a pathway around the layout. So anyway, we're standing there, and he's telling us what we're going to encounter through the night, and we're looking around, and I'm looking over at this couple that picked up the lantern. And I didn't say anything, but I was trying to debunk this shadow that I saw. Behind the guy, there was this huge male shadow, and it was massive. And I'm trying to think it was him throwing the lantern light into the shadow, and I'm watching it, and I'm getting more and more convinced that no, that is not what I'm witnessing. There's something else happening, but I didn't say anything. And at the same time, Chris is saying, there's someone here that's seeing something and is not saying anything, and they really need to open up. And I'm just keeping quiet because I was aware of the skeptics in the group, and I didn't want anybody to actually be saying anything. So, and then just at that moment, as he said, there is someone here that is experiencing something and not saying anything. My daughter and I both turned at exactly the same time and peered over the edge of the washer tub because we both felt and heard something behind us. Well, we couldn't see anything, so we just looked at each other and just kept it quiet a little bit. But then we went into the next room, and that was actually the main washer room, the steam room, what they call of the quarantine station. And in there, Chris started talking about the stories and talking about, there are some people that are going to experience it and some that won't. And then he started talking about the story of people in that room and some experiences that people have had. And then he's mentioned something about seeing like tall shadows. I said, and I couldn't help myself. I said, like the one I just saw in the room next door. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I just saw this really tall shadow in the room next door. And I started to describe what I saw, and he said, stop, don't say anything. And I went, oh dear, maybe I'd done something wrong. Okay, so hang on, I'll duck out here. I have now completed my maze, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my stitching stamping here, and that's going to add a stitched border around the edges of all of this maze. So as you're watching me stamp this part, I'm going to finish off the story. So he said, don't say anything, so I did it, and I thought, oh no, I've crossed the line here, I won't say anything. And then he just asked the question. He said, is there anybody here who is because he said to me, what did he look like? And I said, he had on a hat. And he said, what sort of a hat? And I was trying to explain it to him. And he said, do you mean like an Akuba and a soldier hat? And I went, yeah, that's exactly what it was. So I told him what I saw with the feather plumes and the epaulets on the jacket and so forth. And he said, stop. And he said, is there anybody here anyway, by the chance, who is from a military background or is in the military or something like that? And the guy that I thought was throwing the shadow put up his hand. He said, I'm actually a soldier. And the guy went, oh, my goodness. He says, well, we've been visited by one of our regulars tonight then. He always comes when there's someone from the military. And I was like, oh, my goodness. So it actually was a World War I soldier who came back with consumption and died at the quarantine station. So, and when I explained it to him, he said that's exactly who it was, and it was really, really freaky. So then, of course, people are looking at me skeptically and say, yeah, sure. Well, as we're leaving each room, Chris was saying, now I'm going to leave the light out totally. If you want to stay and you want to take photos, you're more than welcome to. This is the best time to do it. But don't put flash on, just take photos. So that's what I did in this photo here. And I had another person with me because they were a bit skeptical, but I took the photo and I didn't have the flash. Now, when you look at the photo, you will see light in this photo. The only light in the room was the exit sign. But when the photo comes, there is light, but there is the soldier on the wall over to the left, and you will see it because I'll point it out to you. And everybody was like, oh my gosh. After that, they were like, oh my gosh, she caught it. And from then on, the rest of the night, we had experience after experience, so that by the end of the night, there were only 2 left out of the 20 who did not have an experience and was still a bit skeptical. But everybody else had an experience throughout the night. And I can tell you that my daughters and I had so many that it was crazy. And our guide was like, oh, my gosh, I knew it was going to be a great night with you. As soon as you saw that first one, I knew we were in for a great night. And we were. And I have so many photos where I captured so many things that you can't explain. And I will, over time, put them onto layouts and you'll get to see them as well. So now that I've stitched all around all of those, well, actually I stitched all around my maze, you can see how the mini pad has come into play and I've created that background. So I'm now going to put down my photos and you're going to get to see what I saw. And if you're looking, you will see it quite clearly. If not, the second photo, I have drawn the arrow on the photo so that you can see what I saw. And it was really, really clear when you see it. So remember, this room was pitch black. The only light was that exit sign above the door and everything else was dark. But when I took this photo, it all came out lit. And you can see the soldier there to the left on the side. And that's where the arrow is pointing. Now, all of that was the only light on, and you can just see the outline of the soldier there And you can tell because there's the shadows from the other things in the room. I'm standing over the other side taking the photo. So that's not my reflection. I was the only one in the room with the other person standing right next to me, and that's what we saw. And that is the soldier that Chris, when he saw the photo, said, oh my goodness, there he is. So that was our first experience of many that night. I can honestly tell you there were many, many, many. And because the more open you are to these things, the more likely they are to come to you. And given that my family history, with my mum's family being gypsy, we are very, very prone to attracting, and we had a great night. And there were so many things to tell, and people were just coming up and asking questions in the end and were saying, oh my gosh, did you see this, did you see that? Especially when we had experiences where we all shared the same thing and they were like asking for confirmation if we had seen it. And it was a great night. It was a long night. Normally it's a 3-hour tour, and we ended up nearly doing 4 hours because it said it was such a great night with so much interaction. So as I do these photos, I will tell you more stories of our experiences that night. If you're ever in Sydney and you want to do a ghost tour, the quarantine station, unbelievable at Manly, you need to go and do it. So this is what I'm doing, my cut file here. I'm adding in the word ghost stories because there were so many that night. And the quarantine, it's got a sad history, very sad history, and lots of things happened there, and that's why it is so active. But it is world renowned. People know in the paranormal world how active it can be. There are times when it's not active, it's less active. A friend of mine went 2 weeks later and it wasn't as active, but she does believe it was because, number one, her guide wasn't as open to it, and B, there were so many skeptics in her crew. But Chris did say there were nights where they weren't as active as others, and we were just fortunate that they were very, very active for us. Okay, I'm sorry, you can hear Ivy. She just wants my attention. She's a little bit barky today. All right, so I'm just adding in the little ghosts here. I cut those out on my die cutting machine, and they are all coming together in as clusters. I do like how this has come together. The ghosts are the negatives and the outline, and that's allowing me to have that two-tonal embellishment on this layout. And I just like how this maze is created through using just triangles from your mini pads. Now remember, we do have mini pads and we do have them sitting in our stash. You don't have to use mini pads, but this is the whole idea of using them up. I love that I was able to use these Halloween ones. We don't do Halloween so much here in Australia, so getting opportunities to use up the paper is a good idea. I have bought it in the past for crafting activities that I was doing. So this is now putting it into place. Now for my ghosts, I'm just filling in the details. I was going to stick down the pieces, but I just, like, they were so fiddly, I just thought, no, I'll just draw them in. And then I'm adding little white highlights here just to highlight the features on them. Now there are a lot of people playing along in madaboutminipads. I will have all of their details linked down below so that you can go and check them out. If I don't do it for you, somebody else will. I'm sure there's going to be a great amount of inspiration from everybody. I love checking out what everybody else does. I learn something new every single video I watch. Somebody always teaches me something or refreshes my memory about a skill or a process that I have not used for a while. So go check them out. Leave them some love. Hopefully today I've done enough to earn a subscription from you. Let's give me a big thumbs up and a subscribe if you aren't already there. And let me know, have you had a paranormal experience that you can't explain? Have you ever scraplifted them or scrapbooked them into an album to explain it? As I said, there are many, many more to come. There were many, many that night. And as you look at these photos up close, you will see what I saw. And it was crazy, crazy that night. You know, I went a little bit skeptic myself, trying not to be so open to it, but unfortunately I was open to it, and there were many. So once again, thanks very much for watching. I'm glad you stuck it through to the end. Leave me a comment down below. Put a little ghost emoji in to let me know that you watched to the end. That would be amazing. Check out the full list of players down below. You will enjoy them. Happy scrapping, everyone. Remember, one layout at a time, building your albums of memories and everyday history. Catch you real soon in the next one.